So I'm going to ask for a motion to return to open session.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any opposed? We are back in open session. I'm going to report out discussion regarding NEA contract litigation was had. No votes were taken. We will return to executive session after this open session, and I will report out again at the close of that meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the
republic
for which
it stands,
one nation under God,
one nation,
liberty,
indivisible,
justice for all.
liberty and justice for.
Okay, again, welcome to our April 27th Tiverton School Committee meeting. I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Any opposed? I'll take that as unanimous. I'm going to move to item 7, old business. Item 7A, FY22 budget update. Dr. Sanchioni.
Thank you, Dr. Larkin. And if I may I ask the committee to consider moving up item 8B, the RIDE capital plan update. We have members from RGB joining us here tonight. They're already in the call.
Okay, I'll entertain that motion.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Any opposed? I'll take that as unanimous. Okay, we move to item 8B, RIDE capital 5-year plan update. Dr. Sanchioni.
Great, thank you, Dr. Larkin. And tonight we're going to speak to you about our 5-year capital plan with RIDE. As you know, the district previously had a plan, and that plan allows us to do two things: to look at our infrastructure and the things that have to be fixed, like roofs, windows, boilers, things of that nature, but also gives us the opportunity to dream about what our facilities could look like for 21st century education. So for example, we look at the high school, we look at the media center there, and what could that turn into to really accentuate learning? And so all of our principals get the chance to think about that as an administrative team with our teachers and with the community. And leading us through this process is RBG Architects. They've been a great partner. It's a complicated process to work through RIDE. And tonight I have Andrew Barkley here from RGB to take us through that and explain to you how we get to the final destination. And certainly he's available for any questions. So Andrew, thank you for being here.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. So Tracy, my colleague, Donnelly may join. She's in the middle of another school committee meeting right now, but if you see her come up, she'll may join us. But I'll go ahead, and if I can, I'm going to share screen. I put together like a presentation of the process that we're following. Let me know if this comes through. Can you see that, everyone? Yep. Okay, all right. Do you see participants in the Zoom over top of what I'm sharing? No, just the slides. Okay, all right. Sorry, I can't quite tell what you're able to see. So tonight, exactly as Superintendent Sanchioni said, I'd just like to go over the process that we've been following. We're in the middle of compiling work for stage 2, but I'm jumping ahead. So this evening, I'll move to the next slide here. Tiverton. This is the team that we have together that's kind of working, not kind of, they are working. Of course, you, the administration, the school committee, potentially even a building committee, but Tiverton Public Schools, RGB Architects, and then working with us, we have CA Pretzer Structural, we have BER, which is Building Engineering Resources for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. We have Joe Casali in civil. We have C2E as our third-party cost estimator that we have to have as a part of the RIDE requirements. And then also we have a building technology consultant, BTC, looking at security and maybe some improvements. We work pretty closely with Dave Carnivale to understand the systems that you have. So again, talking about the Rhode Island Department of Education, the process or the plan. There's a timeline where you set to go through. There's an RFP. And the stage one was a letter of intent where you identify need. You basically say Tiverton is looking to do a new capital improvement plan and looking to do some educational enhancements. That request was submitted. RIDE would then allow you or invite you to move forward into that process. That's when we begin educational visioning and thinking about what future improvements might be made, or I call them betterments for the schools. This, of course, is always in line with the district. As many people as we can get involved in this conversation is important and necessary. We're also going to be, and I believe we're actually going to start this week. Thursday and Friday, we have a team of the engineers coming out to look at the facilities, go through the facilities and look at what, again, still needs to be fixed, repaired, replaced. I know there's been some work done to the schools, but again, every 5-year capital improvement plan, you have to look again and come up, we call it a matrix. You look at what your needs are. So that information is collected, put into stage 2. That's your stage 2 submission to RIDE. RIDE has an opportunity to approve it, review it, suggest changes, modifications, and then you're going to move. Once that is, you go through schematic design level, design development, and then construction documents. Construction documents would be your stage 3 process. And then, of course, anything that's advanced into construction goes into your stage 4. So that's a lot about the process, but that's kind of the diagram that we're following and the process we're following with RIDE. Does that make some sense? I don't need to go through, I'll go to the next. So we're looking at what type of reimbursement that Tiverton may be basically targeting or looking for. In your capital improvement plan and in your education planning, you want to submit one project, in a sense, for housing aid. Your base, Tiverton's base ratio is 35%. There's additional incentives or bonus incentives that actually can total up to 10 to 15%, depending on what you target. We believe, or looking at what we believe is probably the best, the most significant approach would be looking at health and safety and security improvements for Tiverton. That could potentially gain another 5% on top of your 35% base rate. And then, of course, any educational enhancements that are being considered or advanced under the 5-year plan would also receive 5%. So you, in the end, may actually receive a 45% return on your dollars invested. So that's kind of a quick review or summary of the process that you may be able to increase your rate of return. Let's see, what was the next? We did look at the district demographics, and we're going to have to actually update those. We update them anywhere from every 4 to 6 months. But looking back at the Jacobs report, which I'm sure you've heard of, but it's kind of dated now, but that's a good place to start. RIDE uses that as kind of the benchmark, the place they refer back to. We were looking at enrollment projections. We were looking at the facilities that you have. We were looking at the utilization, the current utilization back in 2016. So in that time, there was a need or a summary of about $55 million across all your schools. Your facility condition, or the FCI, was at 39. But when I looked at this information, I was like, okay, we're going to reevaluate that. That's part of our submission process. And I put this note in here that we know that you passed that $15.4 million bond And we know you did a lot of roof work. We know you've done HVAC, some lighting and electrical work. So this number, your utilization and your FCI percentage, is going to improve based on that. Just haven't done the calculation to know exactly, but because of the work you've done, you lowered your say deficiency range, which was 46 million. By doing that 15, you've come to within a $30 million need. It's not something you have to do all at once, of course, but there's been improvement. And hopefully when we do these building assessments, we're not going to find a whole lot. Hopefully we don't find anything terrible that adds to this or that makes it worse, right? That we're trying to drop this number and repair things and move forward and not add to the list. So that's kind of the base plan. So with that in mind, part of the work we're going to do is called educational visioning, educational planning, and half this committee has been involved with me on that. So started out with Manny and Amy and Sue and everyone and Suzette trying to look, actually started with Peter. So just trying to look at what your vision is, right, that you currently have, looking at the schools, having a chance to come and walk through the schools and sort of interview or talk with every one of the administrators. Then I wanted to do a series of workshops, and we've started those. I'd say we're maybe halfway through. How many? 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe. And we'll continue to do those. And we actually want to continue to reach out to get teachers, and I'd love to get some students and some more parents involved in some of these workshops, because really what the workshops are is looking to what the future needs are, or what you consider Tiverton's future needs are. So we're looking at the curricular aspects. We're looking at physical space as well, but we're looking at spaces maybe that are underutilized or that might be improved or better, so that the delivery of education for the students you have is made, I say, more whole, or that's the idea. We want to think about how we can keep moving forward. We don't stay static. So there's been a lot of discussions about learning environment, special programs, the leadership, what it takes to support the schools leadership that you have currently. Are there ways to make that better? I can talk about this forever, but I put this little, a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, and put this together for the Tiverton school. The idea that Tiverton is a series of different pieces and parts that are all, we were looking at your improvement plan, your vision strategy, and made this plan that bring all the parts together of honesty, care, collective goals, commitment, qualified teachers. You put all those together, you come up with the whole, which is the Tiverton Tiger. So I know it's kind of funny, but it's whimsical. But actually, when I take this to Ride and we share this with Ride, I try and develop a diagram that embodies Tiverton, what makes it unique. These words are what make Tiverton come together and set itself apart. So I put that together, and I think it's kind of fun. All right, so the next thing that we've been working on, and I just mentioned this, but looking at the 5-year capital improvement plan. This is just an example of the diagram that or the matrix we come up with to go through and evaluate each school based on health and safety, ADA requirements, any facility needs like boilers or roofs or windows, any type of brick and mortar type of project gets listed and then ranked a 1 through 4, and we give it a priority of what Tiverton may want to establish as the highest priority items for the next 5 years, from 1 to 5. So it's kind of a list of all the need, but then you have to decide which of those projects moves forward and which do you want to pursue funding for. So that's going to be starting. Well, it started, but we're going to go through this coming week and probably the week or so after. This is one of the main components for the RIDE submission. And then just to go over the kind of the schedule of where we are. We've set up, going over like a recap. The letter of intent was in, you received the stage 1 submission. We started the ed plan review of the school buildings. We started collecting information for the education specs, and which is the discussion with all your administration, your superintendents and principals. Started education workshops. Threw in tonight the presentation. Need to do constant presentations and updates for the school committee, so you're understanding where we are. Facility assessments will begin, and that leads to the 5-year capital plan. Then all of that information basically goes into a draft ed spec. There's going to be meetings with RIDE. We need to schedule one of those and go and work with them and let them know what we've done, what we plan to do, and what would be advanced. And then it gives them an opportunity to be sort of brought along and understand. And they can suggest changes, modifications, or ways that you might rethink moving forward before we go into development of schematic design. And that's the drawing portion of this. What other projects from the capital improvement plan or the education spec may define what those building pieces or components will look like. And that has to go out for cost estimating. Then we receive that back, present that to RIDE again, and then it'll go to town council, building and school committees. And it helps us finalize what we put together and submit the stage 2. It'll be voted upon, of course, to be advanced. And then we submit it in RIDE, and we wait for them to review the documents and approve, make comments and approve the stage 2 before you can advance to stage 3, which would be design, development, and construction documents for the same projects we advance under stage 2. That's a tongue twister, but so really that's the plan or the process. If you have, I went through it pretty quick, but if you have any questions or comments on that, was this helpful? I guess I'll ask that.
Okay.
A lot of information.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Barkley. I appreciate the presentation. I'm going to open up the floor to questions from the committee. Deb, you want to go first?
I'm all set, Jerry. Thank you.
Okay. Elaine?
I'm all set. Have no questions. Thank you.
Diane? Thank you.
Well, I do have a couple of questions. First, but before the actual questions, I do want to, I'm not sure where this deck will land besides our committee. Does this get sent to RIDE? Or is this just the presentation for us and this is as far as it goes?
This I just put together for you and your understanding, but there's no reason why we can't share it. RIDE kind of knows the process, I guess you'd say.
Right.
So
But I just wanted to point out there were a few spots within the presentation itself. I mean, I realize you're using a template, but they referenced other school districts. So if it were to go anywhere beyond this group, I'd ask it get addressed.
okay.
Okay.
So I did check looking for that too. Sorry.
Yeah, page 6 references Lincoln Public Schools.
Page 6.
Maybe we're going to change our name.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that'll help.
They seem to have more money.
No.
Yeah, they want the puzzles on it. The upper right hand corner, because I went through the deck when we received a copy of it.
Yeah. Oh yes. I'm sorry. Well, the images.
It's not our vision, I don't think.
That's right. Right. Those were just images that I pulled from another presentation. They were not for. Sorry, they weren't for Tiverton. They're just examples. But I was like, did I do that?
And then on your schedule, for future meetings, you do mention also LPS for Lincoln Public Schools, I assume.
Okay. LPS.
Right-hand column.
I do. I see it. Okay.
Anyway, that was just, again, I was just concerned that if this were to be distributed any further, I wanted to point that out.
Sure.
As far as I did sit in on a few of the sessions you had at the school improvement team meetings.
Yes.
At the elementary, middle, and high school levels. What I found really great was that the educators as well as the parents all came up with some really forward-thinking ideas that certainly we could embrace over time. And I, as much as I think we're all aware that asking the town to go to bond, the chances of that are pretty slim, that it would be my hope at least that perhaps we could put some of this federal stimulus to work for us in this regard. As far as questions are concerned, and this one may be more for Peter, what's the status of the building committee that we used with the last plan, and what are your thoughts for a building committee moving forward? Peter, you're on mute.
The building committee is on hold right now. They still remain in existence. However, obviously there's no projects for them to evaluate and work on. At the time, if Tiverton was to fund a project moving forward, as Andrew has articulated, RIDE does require a building committee as part of their reimbursement structure. So when that time comes, we would reformulate that committee. There are vacancies on it, so we would go out and advertise with the committee, recruit in the community, and go forward that way.
Okay, good. Thank you. I've actually run into some members of our community who have expertise in the building trades, and I think trying to get them to volunteer would be a great asset for us. So should that come up, I hope we're all aware of it as it gets formulated. And that was it for the questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Could I ask a question? Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ms. Farner brought up a good question. And I'm not, it probably goes more to Peter. Do you, I'm trying to understand the ESSER, or the federal funding that's supposed to be coming our way, your way. Have you heard much about that in terms of, not so much the dollar amount, but how it can be spent? Because I'm not really up to speed on that myself.
We have, as far as there's a couple different tranches of revenue coming from the federal government. There's ESSER 2, which is where we're at right now. And we finally did receive the guidance on how those funds can be used. There is ESSER 3, which is a larger sum of money. We're still waiting guidance on that one.
Okay.
So we have the first amount of money that we can start working on and planning for.
Does that require, I'm pretty confident that, does RIDE control that and how that's allocated? Does it go back to them?
Each district is allocated a sum of money, but it's an application too. So even though it's an entitlement amount, you have to apply for it and you have to justify its usage.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't want to pick on you. It's new to me, the term. So, okay.
Okay, Mike, I think you're left. Mike, you muted. He must have stepped away for a minute. So I have I guess a question similar to Diane's. So the building committee is actually a committee of the superintendent, not of the school committee itself. It's not a subcommittee of the school committee. And when we finished the work on the ceilings and the HVAC, they were, or the roof and the HVAC and the ceilings and the draft walls, they were sort of, yeah, just left in existence, but not really. And I guess my question is, because when we did this scarily now 8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, we did convene the once we had the plan ready to go to RIDE. And that was, so I wonder anyway about doing that at that point. The other thing, and this is more a question, well, I guess it's a question for both Andrew and Peter. So would we be able to get like a presentation of the results of these meetings, or is that just going to be embedded in the report? And I guess I'm at least in part interested in what was brought up or seemed to have some traction, but didn't necessarily then go into the ultimate 5-year plan.
Yes. So what I'm part of the work that I'll be doing is actually, it's called an ed spec. So I'm going to put a draft together of the discussions, the workshops we've had, just to sort of record the conversation and give you an idea of the things that came to the front.
Yep.
So that's part of something, and that's definitely something that could be shared with you, and should be. And then from that, there should be further discussion about what we might advance into the capital improvement plan or education enhancements, they call it. So before those turn into real projects, we really need to get your understanding, the committee's understanding, and say support for. I mean, it doesn't have to be unanimous, but we want to have a kind of a consensus that it makes sense educationally, and it makes sense financially or fiscally, that you would want to put that plan into the submission, the stage 2 submission. So yes, I'll get you some more information on what the outcome. The conversations are very interesting, and I would also I'd like to invite you, if you can. I put some invitations out there to get you involved as well. And I know it takes more time, but be part of the conversations, and because it's great to have discussion and have differing opinions on what the schools should look to advance or change. So
Yeah.
or not. So.
We just need to be careful from an open meetings standpoint. We only make decisions as a body. So
yeah,
certainly any one of us can attend and listen, but really any decisions and any discussion from the members, really does need to be done at a board meeting.
Right. There's no official decisions made. These are more discussions and conversations. We're not voting on anything. I don't have the power to do that. So.
Okay. And Peter, were the meetings, they were all, I thought, on Zoom, were they recorded at all?
I have to turn that, Andrew.
Yes, I have the recordings of them. So I think I have all of them. Maybe not everyone, but I believe I do. So I could share those if that's.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to even post them on the website so that if people were not able to attend, they could, go to the ones that were held at their school to sort of see what people were saying. I don't know if Mike is back.
I am, and I apologize. I got something I had to take care of, but no, thank you for the presentation. And if you ever need to borrow Diane to look over anything, available. She's very good.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know why people don't say she's detail oriented.
Well, I spent time doing that. You still caught me. That schedule one's always tough. I look at it and like, yeah, makes sense, but no, missed it.
Sometimes you can look at things 14 times and you'll miss it. A fresh set of eyes will find it right away.
It's true.
All right. So Mike, is that it? Anything?
Yeah, that is it. Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Any questions from any of our administrators? Or comments? And
They've been involved, I'll tell you that. Elementary, it's great. They've been involved. I just want to get more.
yeah,
So,
okay, great.
Sorry.
And I don't know if Dave or Julie are monitoring any questions from the public.
There are no questions currently, Dr. Lappin.
Okay. All right. So anything else on this from anyone? So Andrew, thank you very much for coming.
Sure.
Appreciate your work and had a good relationship with RGB to date. So hopefully that is going to continue. I expect it will continue.
thank you very much.
Thanks, Andrew.
And you have a good evening.
You too. All right. I seem to have lost my agenda. There it is. All right. So we're going to return to item 7A.
Could I make a suggestion or request?
Sure.
Because we're getting close to the point where we really need to take a deep dive into the budget. We need to start talking about, we have a June 1st layoff deadline, those kind of things. Could we set a budget workshop date where we start really digging into these kind of things instead of, would anyone, where we just do the budget? Maybe we could do 7A, 7B. I mean, if people have specific questions tonight, I mean, I certainly don't want you to hold back, but I just think we need to start having a dedicated budget meeting where we start really digging into different scenarios and, really getting into the meat of the discussion. Amy and Peter, what do you think that would be helpful?
Yeah, I do. And thanks for asking, Ms. Palish. The ability to really dissect where we are, where we possibly could end up, needs some in-depth conversation. You've already alluded to a couple of dates that are coming up quickly. And as you'll see, when we get to item
Calendar.
8D, right, you have a date coming up for a submittal that's right after our next meeting. So any type of budget retreat prior to that, I think gives you better dialogue to make a good decision there.
Can we perhaps do something next week? Is that too soon?
I'll speak.
Yeah,
for the project.
Peter
We're
and
available.
Amy, you tell us, because that,
I guess it would depend on the information that we want to have. So, depending on how long it'll take me to prepare the analyses. So, I would like to have things prepared before we go into the meeting so that we can, make most effective use of the time versus going in and then coming out and having me do it and sending it back and so forth. So
agree.
I guess it just depends on what exactly we want to look at. I mean, I have the ideas in my head, but I want us to be sort of laser focused on the information that we need as best we can.
I could say on my end, there's two things I could be ready to share with you next week. The spending plan for ESSER 2 and options to address a potential deficit. So those are two topics, and I think they are topics we should discuss. I could be prepared for that for next week. And, Tuesday night's always a great night for us to meet.
And Amy, I think from my perspective, I would just, I would want to see, and you've already given it to us, I would want to take another look at the budget, like detail.
Okay, which has
The
not
one
changed.
Oh, okay. And we could maybe go through like where we were, where we are now, what, just give us a real high level, why it changed type of thing.
Would it be possible, Amy, sorry to cut you off, Deb. Would it be possible to take the 9 months to date that you gave us for tonight and combine that with the line level detail for the request that you've already given us before, so that we have everything in one spot? It's not recreating anything, but it would allow us to have everything on one sheet. And I'm not even, we could even drop off the 2020 numbers if it's too much for one, but to have the 21 year to date, as well as the budget numbers to compare it to the 22
Yep.
request. Make sense?
So,
Should we pull up 8D just so we can look at those charter dates so we can see what we're talking about?
so I don't want to lose track of the agenda too much.
Oh, okay. So,
Yeah.
so can we table 8A and B for now until we get to 8D? How's that?
All right. So I'm going to formally announce that we are on item 7A, which is the FY22 budget update. Ms. Palish suggested that we have a budget workshop. I'd like to at least address that first. So Elaine, you're in favor of doing this or not?
That's fine, as long as we accomplish something. I don't
Well-
feel like we're accomplishing anything from one week to week meeting to the other, the next.
Well, that's why I said
We
need
keep
to have,
talking about things, but I want to know exactly what the plan or a plan would be, depending on what we get, what we don't get.
agree.
Yeah. Well,
That's
I-
what we need to start discussing.
We always looked at the cuts,
Okay.
account
So-
by account, and it was very clear. It was always very clear. So I think having a meeting strictly for those things would be very important, and hopefully it'd be beneficial.
Yep. Mike, you're on board with having a dedicated meeting sometime next week?
I am, yeah, and two, yes.
Okay. So we floated the idea of Tuesday, there's Wednesday, there's Thursday, there's Friday, there's Saturday. Monday's probably too soon. All of them are
Wednesday?
probably equally bad, I guess. Nothing sticks out as equally good for me personally. What do others think?
Monday's the only
Right.
day
Is there another time? It doesn't have to be at night. I mean, we're all Zoom now.
I can't do it during the day, Deb, unless it's the weekend.
Can't do during the day either.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty caught up.
Yeah, and I was thinking, I guess we couldn't really do it over lunch hour because it's probably going to be longer than that.
Yeah. How does Wednesday night sound?
Just let me look at that calendar.
That's the 5th.
We
That,
start at 6 or too early.
I can start at
I hate
6.
6.
You hate 6, okay.
Well,
know,
I'd
but
rather-
if we
even
start at 7.
6:30 is good. 6:30 is good.
I could do 6:30.
And Wednesday's okay for me.
Mike,
How about Diane? And Jerry and Pete, Mike?
That's
Peter,
okay
is
with me.
Wednesday good for you?
That works.
and most importantly, Amy, is it good for you?
Yes.
Okay.
And Diane, you said Wednesday's okay?
Yes.
Mike, you said Wednesday's okay?
No, but it sounds like you have enough. I'll just have to catch up with you guys.
Oh, no, Mike, you should be there because we need
Oh.
to start to making decisions about priorities, what's going to be cut if we don't get, I mean, you should be there. Is Thursday
Okay.
better?
Is it the
Mike, what
time, Mike, or
would be
the
good for-
Wednesday altogether?
So coach both my daughter's softball teams in Tiverton Little League, and we practice on
No,
nights.
that's important.
Okay.
If I'm not there, then
Is
let-
Thursday better, Mike?
it is.
I can
Thursday, I can do
Thursday at
Tuesday, or I
6:30.
can do Thursday.
Thursday's okay and probably better for me.
I can do
Is
Thursday at
Thursday okay with
6:30.
Peter?
Do Thursday.
Amy,
Yes.
Elaine,
Yes,
there we go.
All right, so Thursday, May 6th at 6:30.
30.
6:30, okay.
And to Amy's point, if anybody has anything specifically they want to see, please let her know so, or Peter, so that they do have time to
Yes,
prepare.
not to rush anyone, but the sooner the better, because I have to, I have to present it to you by, deliver it to you by Tuesday, is that correct? The
No,
48 hours ahead, so,
You
We have to
can,
post by
That's a
Tuesday.
post.
No, we have to post. Amy, it's okay if you just go over it with us on Thursday when
Okay.
it's just a workshop like this.
okay,
I mean, if you can get it to us ahead of time, that's fine, but if you can't, that's all right. We'll just,
okay,
yeah, I think the point is, it's always, particularly around things that we're going to vote on, it's always better to have the information ahead of time, but the detail can be provided in real time at the meeting itself. I mean,
so budget workshop, May 6th, 6:30 PM.
right.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
So anyway, I guess I'll make a prefatory remark, which is, I think part of the issue is dealing with so many amorphous things between the stimulus money, the peculiarities of the budget calendar, which is now moved in Tiverton, as well as the statutory requirement to give notice on June 1st if we are going to lay off teachers, and the fact that we are, running a structural deficit of, I want to say, between $600,000 and $800,000 just on the basis of our contractual obligations from FY21. I think that's why it's hard to get anything done here, because there are so many unknowns and they're not getting known very fast, at
But
least in my view.
that's why I want, that's
Yeah.
why I wanted a workshop, so that's all we do. And Peter
Yep.
and Jerry, that's all we do that night. Nothing else on that agenda.
Promise.
I haven't been sneaking
She
things.
says very forcefully.
All heard it here, Jerry.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, we are on item 7A, FY22 budget update. So,
I'm going to make a motion that we table that until May 6th.
well, I think, is there a second?
Second,
Okay. I'm going to open it up for discussion, and I guess I would prefer that we not table it until we've at least heard from Peter to see if he has anything else to tell us tonight.
I've already alluded to it, that we did finally get the guidance for ESSER 2, and that we are working on a spending plan for that money, and we should have a good, a solid draft for you to review next week at our meeting.
Okay. And SR 3 is still a black box?
The amount is known, but the guidance is an unknown.
correct.
Okay, so since you're talking about it anyway, I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay.
I was second.
All right. And anything else on the budget, either Peter or Amy? No? Okay. Then I guess we'll move to item 7B, which is budget versus actual. Amy,
Thank you.
say as much as you
Share
as much or
my-
as little as you want, and say whatever you would like to Thursday, I guess.
Okay. Oh, sorry, hang on 1 second, please. Can you folks see the screen? The budget to actual?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
Great. Great. So I'm sorry, bear with me 1 second. So at the last meeting, I had presented to you a budget to actual through March 17th, roughly mid-month. And so this is through March 31st, which is requested for this meeting, although we are now almost a month beyond that. Not a whole lot has changed in the last 2 weeks of March, other than adding another payroll and some other invoices that have come in. We are still substantially, I'll say, we have spent substantially less than we did at this same time last year. In totals, about 61% versus 68%. Although in a conversation with Mrs. Farnworth this afternoon or this morning, we fully expect to come in on budget, but not to have any sort of surplus. We will expect to, in particular with the out-of-district placements and tuitions to other districts, to come in right on budget. Transportation should come in on budget, and the sort of, I'll say, smaller categories or more discretionary categories, all the principals and all the departments are doing a fantastic job at showing tremendous restraint and trying not to spend unless it's for educational purposes and it's really needed for the kids. So it really not a whole lot has changed from what we've already discussed in the prior meeting. So I will now leave it for you folks to pose any questions about what you might see.
I'm going to open up the floor to questions. Diane?
Well, as Ms. Roderick alluded to, I did speak with her earlier today on this, specifically to talk about the out-of-district placements, and ask, where we do expect to be, because we're, if you look at this, you say, oh, it's less than 75%, but we all have to remember that there is the fact that we're always at least a month behind on everything, right?
At least, yes.
At least.
At least.
So, yeah, so she helped clarify that for me. And so, again, I think having this 9-month figure is going to be important as we look for the deep dive next week, and we compare that to what we are expecting for 22. I wouldn't, I wouldn't update this. I would just slide it next to those numbers if you could.
Certainly.
And if there's anything significant that comes to play between now and then, certainly we can talk about it. That's all I got.
Okay, thanks. Elaine?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Mike?
I don't have any either. Thank you.
Deb?
No, I'll wait till May 6th.
Okay. And any questions for our administrators? I can't see you, so you'll have to unmute and speak up. And any questions from the public, Mr. Carnevale?
There are no questions at this time.
Okay. All right, thank you, Amy.
Certainly.
Seem to have lost my agenda yet
Oh.
again.
Stop sharing. Here we go.
All right, we are on item 7C, discussion and possible vote resolution, House 5485 Act allows school committee to add items to their agenda for the purpose of discussion only without having to publish notice of the additional items. Mr. Dakotas.
Thank you. Hopefully third time's the charm, right, Dr. Sanquioni?
Correct.
So this came on the agenda twice before. The last meeting, Deb, I don't think you were here, but Diane wanted to reach out to the council or our town clerk and just make sure that the language in this resolution was what the town council is using. So we did wait for that. We did receive that from the town clerk. I can read it if you want to, but it is in our packet under 7C, and I am here tonight to see if we can't get together to pass this resolution and send this up to Rep. Edwards to support his bill at the State House.
I'll make a motion to approve.
There's a second.
Second.
Any discussion? I guess, Mike, I'll let you go first.
Well, I just wanted to thank Dr. Sanquioni. He was very supportive of this. I think it's a no-brainer. We had discussion as a committee, and also wanted to thank Rep. Edwards for putting this together. And hopefully after tonight, we will be able to send a support from our council as well. We already have the support of our town council as well. So we should be able to abide by the same open meetings laws that any other board or commission has. So appreciate everyone's work on this, and hopefully this will be the last time we have to talk about this one.
Thanks, Mike. Deb? Okay. Diane?
I have nothing.
Elaine?
Nothing.
Okay. Again, Mike, thanks for shepherding this through. I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. Diane?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Elaine?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so motion passes. And again, thank you, Mike, and thanks to Representative Edwards for placing this before the legislature.
Thank you. And Dr. Sanquioni, will you be able to send this to him, or should I?
No, we'll take care of it for you. We'll get Dr. Lockett to sign it and we'll move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And we are up to item 7D, vote final capital request submission. Dr. Sanquioni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your packet, you see the items that we're asking for your consideration to submit to the Budget Committee and to the Town Administrator for our capital request for FY22. Real quick, again, the bathrooms have been on there to refurbish one at the middle school and high school, the siding at Ranger. We made a change in our kitchen equipment. We originally requested $90,000. We're going to prioritize that down to just a dishwasher, which is $55,000. So it's brought the request back a little bit. Again, we've made the overture and we'll continue to look for a used model if in fact we can find one that fits our needs. The maintenance contracts for heating for the 5 schools, and we've added in the light pole, which was not on the original request. When we submitted our original request, we were still pursuing insurance and a couple other options. At this time, I think it's prudent for us to seek funding as a capital project. If any of those things do come to fruition, we certainly could reimburse wherever the revenue came from, but not having that pole limits our athletic program for the fall. So the total is $555,500, and I seek your approval tonight to submit this.
Okay, I'm going to ask for motion to approve.
I'll make that
I'll
motion.
make that motion.
Okay, Mr. Dakotas has made the motion. Diane, do you want to second it?
Sure.
Okay, any discussion? I'll open up the floor. Elaine?
I've been thinking of this a lot, and this is my question. Do we have to do the bathrooms at the middle high school? Finish the bathrooms. The bathrooms that we have not finished weren't bathrooms that were typical. We went through the buildings last year because it would have been the year before. Bathrooms that were in such disrepair that there was any health or hazard safety concerns, did the worst bathrooms. And I have to say that if we don't do them and it reduces that much from our capital request, maybe we will get the rest of the siding. To me, the siding is very important. Dishwasher, of course, the heating contracts we have to do, and the light pole. If we don't get that fixed, then we're not going to be able to use the field for functions at night. But could we, without doing those bathrooms for another year?
So Elaine, I'm sorry. I think a lot of what you said did not transmit very well, but let me restate what I think you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you thought that maybe pulling the bathrooms off would improve our chances of some of the other items, especially as we had done at least two of the one of the bathrooms in the, or one set of bathrooms, I should say.
Right.
And one set of bathrooms in the middle school.
Right.
Is that fair?
Yes, I think it would help our chances of getting something for our capital requests. And personally, just my personal feeling is that those bathrooms be put on hold. Some of these other things, they really need to be done. The range of siding, that's health. I mean, that's mold. The dishwasher, we've been cited already for that terrible leaking of the old dishwasher. The heating contracts, yes, we have to, take those. And the light pole, if we don't have lights, we don't use the fields. That's why I looked this over and thought about it and wanted to ask if there'd be a chance that put the bathrooms on hold for another year to finish the bathrooms.
Okay, Peter, I think that's to you.
Well, certainly the bathrooms are functional this year and they certainly could be put on hold. I would make 2 points. A, they're not compliant with ADA. And secondly, in the time of COVID, the ability to upgrade those facilities and use handless dispensers and water and have a working soap dispenser and all those things certainly enhances our ability to keep our students safe. But to your question, they are functional. So if the school committee decided to move it another year, then they remain the way they were and they're out functional.
Okay. Mike?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Diane?
I have two things I want to bring up. First of all, I want to talk about the maintenance contract. While I 100% believe that it's needed, this is more of a question of, it's already been brought up by the budget committee that they don't feel it's a capital expenditure. It's the accountant in me kind of agrees. However, we simply haven't had the funding to pay for it. So I just want to kind of put it out there for the committee to think about, to say, this is kind of an indication of how things have gone, right? Our schools need to be made so that they can last however many decades more we need to get out of them. Having the maintenance contract on the heating and ventilation systems is really an indication of us taking care of some of those needs. I feel that, the town owns these buildings and that it's really, it's not a school operations issue, but rather an insurance, if you will. So, I mean, I could go either way on that one. And I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts, but I'll leave that there. It's a rather small amount. The bathroom refurbishments at the middle school and the high school, I strongly support. Our high school is 50 plus years old. Our middle school is 40 plus. We've all seen these bathrooms. I mean, it is, to Dr. Sanchioni's point, they're not ADA compliant. They're certainly not what I would consider to be cleaned in any way, as far as the hands-free capabilities and such. And quite honestly, the amount of rust and disgustingness in those rooms, I would also consider to be a safety issue. And I will, as members of the school committee, I think it is our responsibility to advocate, to maintain, to ask the town to maintain these buildings, because we're going to be using them for a long time to come. And that's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay. Deb?
I support the list as presented.
Okay. And I agree with Deb's rather succinct statement. I think each of those things is important. And each of these things needs to be accomplished. This goes to the town administrator, then forwarded to the budget committee, and they ultimately put on what's on the ballot. That doesn't preclude a separate question being put forward by a petitioner as well, I believe. I have that right in terms of the charter. So motion's been made and seconded. Any questions from or comments from our administrators? Manny's just getting up and walking away. I thought for sure he was going to say something. All right. Any questions from the public?
Not at this time.
All right. I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. Mrs. Farnworth?
Yes, for 557,500.
Mrs. Pava?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Mrs. Palish?
Yes.
Mr. Dakonis?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So the vote is 4 in favor, 1 abstention. All right. We're up to item 8A. Best one of the night. All right. This is to recognize Suzette Wardell, Rhode Island Association of School Principals, Elementary Principal of the Year. Dr. Sanquioni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You've already said highlighted the agenda. I'd like to share with you a screen. There is the lovely Miss Wardell receiving the award for Elementary Principal of the Year. Couldn't be more deserving. I want to commend Principal Cabral for initiating the application and then all the support that came with it from the staff members who worked with her through her career in Tiverton and many other people who could all sing her praises of the outstanding work she's done in our community, leading Fort Barton for a number of years and now at Pocasset, where she's already making significant positive changes. Suzette is a consummate professional and a pleasure to work with. And I ask you all now to join me in recognizing her as Elementary Principal of the Year.
I don't know how we do a standing ovation on Zoom, but
We take our things off and we stand up and we clap.
okay, we'll all stand up and clap. Congratulations, Suzette. Well deserved.
Well deserved. Very proud of you, Suzette.
So,
Thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, I really do appreciate all the support that I've received over the years from everyone here in Tiverton, the Tiverton community, the parents, the teachers, even the students. I mean, they've just been outstanding. As part of this award, I am doing a few things over the next couple of months. So in May, I am presenting to the Rhode Island Association of School Principals. The Association of School Principals is sponsoring me to attend in July the National Principals Conference. And the School Principals Association has forwarded my application to the National Distinguished Principals Award. So hopefully I'll find out about that sometime soon.
all right, well, that's fabulous. Is anyone you'd like us to pay off? Let us know to improve your chances. But
That coming out of your pocket, Jerry?
of course, well, you know, she's so outstanding. We really wouldn't need much money to pay off. It'd only be, 5 or 10 cents. So again, congratulations, Suzette. Your future is so bright, you have to wear shades. So thank you again for all of your hard work and leadership that you've shown your schools and the district. All right, we are moving to item 8C, middle school promotion. Mrs. Craven. Sue, you're muted.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Locken. I was wondering if Mr. Carnavale can pull up the presentation, please. It's a very brief presentation. There's not much to it, but.
We're waiting for that, Dr. Larkin. I just wanted to say congratulations to Stu. I know we didn't get a chance to say anything.
Oh,
Congratulations.
You got to be like me, Mike. You just don't wait to be recognized. You just talk.
I know. I'm trying to not disrupt, but congratulations. That's such an amazing.
Right. Well, the first time you interrupt, we'll know that you're no longer the new kid on the block, I guess.
Okay, so Mr. Carnavale put the information guide up. I did send to you a brief presentation, which included a survey that I sent to the 8th grade students. So as you know, last year we had, COVID, and we had a drive-through promotion ceremony, which was a huge success. And I wanted to get a feel for whether or not the students wanted to go back to a traditional ceremony this year, which I would be more than happy to do, or they'd like the idea of a drive-through ceremony. And so I did what, everyone does, and I sent out a survey to the students themselves. And I also visited each classroom of the 8th grade students to make sure that they took the survey. However, 84% of the students who took the survey, 84 students took it. All but 12 said they liked the idea of a motorcade ceremony. So I'm going to go with that for this year. I did add on a few extras. We are going to have a barbecue for the 8th grade students at the end of the year, in which we'll have an awards ceremony then. But we're going to go with the motorcade, and I think it will be a great event, and I know the students are looking forward to it as well. Mr. Carnavale is going through like the needs to know. As you recall, last year we had each family had a ticket which had a time in which they had to appear at the event. And we did add, if you keep scrolling, Mr. Carnavale, keep scrolling down. We can keep going right here. We did add a photography session this time around, so that at the end of the motorcade path, parents are allowed to now go in front of the school and take photographs, where last year we weren't allowed to do that because you couldn't get out of the car. So the ceremony is set for, keep going, please, June 22nd with a rain date of June 23rd.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So how exactly do you know that, Tiger? I'm going to open it up to questions from the committee. Mrs. Pava?
No questions, but sounds like a good time.
Thank you.
Mrs. Farnworth?
Are you in need of any volunteers to help out with logistics?
No, thank you for asking. I would love as many as I possibly could have. We are working with the parent teacher organization. Jocelyn Sherman is helping quite a
Oh,
bit.
they got it.
And
They
Julie
got it.
Elcourt is helping with the signage. So, I do have a pretty good team. I have to say, I do rely on them quite a bit, but thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Mr. Dakotas?
So Mrs. Farnworth beat me to my exact thing I was going to say. If you need anybody to help, and I know that you're in great hands with the PTO led by Jocelyn, and I love a barbecue. So if you do need help, I will be there. So thank you, and good job. I think the students will have a great time. So great to see the mask down for the picture as well. So we're coming along.
Exactly. Thanks.
Mrs. Palish?
Sue, I just want to thank you because one of the things that I think we've all learned in the last year and a half is, we've new experiences, new ways of doing things. And I just want to, congratulate you and thank you for sort of, embracing that and seeing what the kids wanted to do. You're possibly starting new traditions that are going to be in place for, next generation. So it's been an interesting year and a half, and I applaud you for embracing the positive of it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, again, Sue, thank you. That's a great job. Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the public, Mr. Carnavale?
There are no questions or comments right now.
And any questions for our administrators? Okay, great. Well, again, great job, Sue. And I guess I will see you on the 22nd with
A
an
car,
eighth grader.
bring one, bring all, right? As many as your car will hold.
I'm gonna bring one, assuming he gets his homework done. Which, you know, that's a daily issue. Anyway, all right. We are on item 8D, review key charter dates. That's in your packet. I don't know if we want to table this until next week. That was one of the, that was Deb's suggestion earlier. I'm trying to pull those dates up. So our first hard date is the 15th, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And that is 63 days prior to the financial town referendum, which is the 17th at this point. So it's, what is the pleasure of the committee? We want to table this one?
I'll make,
We're gonna vote.
Hmm?
Sorry, I don't think we needed to vote anyway. It's really just informational at this point.
Yeah, no, there's no vote. All right, any discussion? And next is item 8E, decommission all-purpose tractor for sale. Dr. Sanquioni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your packet, you have a 1971 tractor that has not been in use in the Tiverton Public Schools for a large number of years. We'd like your permission, because it was purchased with taxpayer money, to decommission it. In return, we will put it up for sale.
Can I have a motion to decommission the tractor for sale?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Palish? Mr. Dakotas?
I would just like to ask, what do we think it's worth?
Yeah.
We have
I'm totally curious, sorry.
We have an offer for $1,000 on the table right now, if anyone wants to succeed itself to the biggest bidder.
All right, there's a starting point. Thank you, that's all I had.
Mrs. Barnworth?
I guess that's because it's vintage.
That's what I was wondering.
I'd have to talk to
Probably.
the buyer, I'm not sure.
Maybe Antiques Roadshow might be worth a look.
Does it still run?
I don't know. Oh, that, I don't know.
It doesn't run, Peter? You're muted.
No, I'm not muted. No, it does not run.
It does not run. You do a lot of things. All right. Mrs. Bava? All right. Mrs. Palace, you back? All right. I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. Mrs. Pavo?
Yes.
Mr. Dakotas?
Yes,
Mrs. Farnworth?
Yes.
Mrs. Palish?
I will abstain because I did not hear the conversation. I'm sorry.
It was just about decommissioning the tractor, and the conversation wasn't.
Oh, okay. I saw the backup, so I'll approve.
All right. Conversation wasn't really worth hearing. And I'll vote yes. So 5-0, motion passes.
Deb, it could be worth at least $1,000. That's worth hearing.
That's, hey, I'll take it.
All right. Item 8F, school resource officer funding, Dr. Sanquioni and Mr. Dakotas.
Great. I'll provide some background before we turn it to Mr. Dakotas. As you were aware, last year when we were doing our budget cuts, the school resource officer was approved by the school committee to not be funded by the Tiverton Public Schools. As you know, that's a cost share position with the Tiverton Police Department. Our share of that was $63,000. During the beginning of the year, for a number of reasons, some bills were submitted that we did pay. And so we actually did pay a portion of that 63,000. We paid exactly $21,376. Right now, the delta is 41,624. Again, I recognize that this position was not voted to be funded this year. It was part of the 24.2 positions we did cut. But I know there's been a lot of conversation in the community about this. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Mr. Dakotas, who most likely will address that.
Thank you, Dr. Sanquioni, Dr. Larkin. So I want to make sure I say it carefully, but I guess the way to put it is in just having a good open communication in town with some people that are just concerned residents, taxpayers, some people that maybe are on the municipal side of things. I just been pulled by the ear to say, you know, I'm not sure why this isn't being funded. This is an agreement the town made quite some time ago. And I came to the conclusion that there were two things that really stuck out to me. And when I contacted Dr. Sanquioni, I had asked him to please think about putting this on the agenda. One of them was currently we've already started to make some payments, whether that was accidental or not is not part of really the discussion. But the part for me is that I was actually on the budget committee last year. It's not something that I supported us cutting. And one of the reasons is I think this school resource officer has a lot of impact at the high school. And the second part of my thought process was to actually think about bringing this back for this budget cycle we're going into. I know the first thing is, well, Mike, where are we going to get the money from? Well, I think above all else, I think everyone here would agree, and if you don't, then I would be absolutely shocked, but student safety is the most important thing we do. I know before I got on the school committee, every time I heard Dr. Sanquioni give a presentation, especially during COVID, he would always say, that is the most important thing, is to keep our students safe. And I know we're in a budget crisis, and I'm asking for a discussion and I wasn't on the school committee when this decision was made, and I'm asking for some discussion on reopening this to include putting this back into the budget. I think it's an integral part of our town. I think in light of mass shootings, which we see happen, it's got to be every single day. I really would feel much safer with having somebody on the premises. And I think our town made that agreement a long time ago. And I know it's tough to cut jobs, but this is one I think is worth my time fighting for. So thank you for letting me put this on here and addressing everyone. And love to open up the discussion.
Dr. Larkin, if I may.
Yep.
I just want to make sure the committee is fully informed that this position has been active in our school system since the beginning of the year. I spoke to Chief Jones about this, and in his contract with his officers, it's a mandated position. So he felt like he needed to honor the contract. So we have had Officer Reposer in our schools since September 14th. We have been receiving the service.
Okay. I'm going to ask if any member of the committee would like to make a motion so that we have this open for discussion properly.
I'll make the motion to maintain the school resource officer in our district.
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay, so the motion's been made and seconded. I'm going to ask one question, then I'll open it up to the rest of the committee. Peter, I believe we have a memorandum of understanding or agreement with the police department. Is that correct, or am I not remembering that
Find
properly?
one, Dr. Larkin, which is why in your packet I provided you the police contract and the wording that's in there that stipulates that the position needs to be filled by the police department. We couldn't find an MOU or an MOA.
I see. Okay. So I'm going to open up the for discussion. Mrs. Farnworth.
Sorry, couldn't get off mute. This is the third time this has come up to us?
Yep,
This
probably something like that.
The- My thoughts on this have nothing to do with the role itself. I don't think any of us are particularly against having a school resource officer. You know, the one thing I will remind everyone on is that it is one person who splits his time amongst, I think, all of our schools, but primarily middle school and high school. I don't think that in and of himself, he will stop a mass shooting from occurring. I do also want to remind all of us the reason why the position was cut from our budget, at least, is that we were laying off, what was it, 24 teachers? And, you know, as much as if the community wants to continue to support an SRO, I will certainly do so. The decision this year was made entirely out of fiscal concerns. The fact that, you know, if not for this, we would have had to lay off another teacher. And it was just more than what we could bear when we were making those very difficult decisions about a year ago at this time. The only question I really do have is if the committee feels strongly about doing this for fiscal 21, I will ask our finance manager, what does that do to our budget? Do we have the flexibility within the budget to absorb this?
Actually, we do, only because, again, credit to all the principals and the department heads in their judicious spending thus far. So yes, we can rearrange the budget to accommodate it.
Okay, that's
Anything
all
else,
I have.
Nate? Okay. Mrs. Palish?
Yeah, that was going to be my only, I mean, I certainly echo what Diane said, that it wasn't that anybody didn't think this position was important. We do, but we also thought, you know, a special ed education aide was important, and a math tutor was important, and you know, any number of the positions that, you know, we had to cut. It really was just a decision of, you know, we have 20, you know, we had to, you know, cut 1 point something million, and it was a matter of setting, you know, priorities, and you know, we had to set them. I mean, next year, you know, next year's not going to be any easier. I mean, if we have to cut $1.8 million, we're going to be revisiting, you know, and going through the same exercise. But if Amy is comfortable that we can, understanding we're already in a deficit spending situation, but in the context of that total budget, if our finance director is telling us that we can fund it, and the priority for the committee is to bring this back versus any of those other 24.2 positions, then you know, we at least know it can be funded.
Okay. Mrs. Pava?
Yes, Dr. Larkin. Diane, I do agree that one person cannot stop a mass shooting. However, I'd like people to know that the position of school resource officer isn't just that person, you know, looking out for somebody maybe could be a shooter. That person forms relationships with the kids. The kids learn to trust that person. They get used to seeing that person in the schools. And sometimes, and many times, because of the trust they gain, they will go to that school resource officer and maybe share with the school resource officer things that may be happening. That position is very important. I know everyone feels that way, but I don't think that everyone realizes what that position really does, what that person really does. So we'll just hope that things will get better next year, but this year, Amy is saying we can fund it, so I think we should go ahead and do that.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Larkin, could I just ask quickly, we have that in the budget. We put that back in for next year, correct? At least initially? Oh, okay, so maybe that's something, I'll continue that discussion on the 6th then.
Yeah.
Because maybe that's something we need to think about, is putting that back in and talk about that. Thank you, sorry.
Okay. Do any of our administrators, particularly our principals, I'd be really happy to hear your thoughts on this issue.
Dr. Lockton, and Mr. Cabral.
Yep.
The resource officer is very instrumental at the elementary level, especially for truancies and for out-of-district students coming in that don't live in town. That's the only person we really have to go to. I've had 2 situations this year at Ranger, and Officer Raposa was very effective in getting those students back to school and without having to go to court. So it's been an effective position for those reasons at the elementary level. It's not like the situations that he deals with at the high school, but he's very effective at the elementary for truancies and for residency.
Okay, thank you.
We've also used the, we've also used the SRO at the elementary schools for wellness checks. If a student is absent for a period of time, we work with the SRO to go and to check to make sure the family's okay, that the child's okay. So we work closely in that way too. So it's an important position.
Okay, thank you.
I also agree with Mr. Cabral and Ms. Wardell. As a school resource officer in a middle school, we conduct a lot of investigations for issues that arise. A lot of it has to deal with social media, etc. However, just for example, yesterday I spent 3.5 hours with the school resource officer conducting an investigation that required a lot of time, energy, and efforts. And without him, I wouldn't have been able to do it in the fashion that I was able to conclude the investigation. So it's extremely important that I have that individual in the school to rely upon wellness checks, truancy issues, but also investigations at the middle and high school level that need the authority of the local police department to help out.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Donnelly Roche, anything? Amy?
My colleagues have addressed it very well, and I concur. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from the public, Mr. Carnevale?
Yes, we actually do have one comment from a Pete Sherman. And Pete's comment is, a trained officer would certainly have a great chance of stopping a shooting by an untrained individual, regardless of the weapons he or she possesses.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Yep, Diane?
Dr. Larkin, if I could.
Sure.
Let me just clarify my comments. My comments were aimed at Mr. Dakotas' contention. I understand that an officer, while in the school, will most certainly deter a shooter. But if the officer is at the middle school, there is no protection at the high school. That being said, we're all well aware of the thousands that we've spent in plant security upgrades over the last several years as well. I'm not debating the value of a school resource officer. You've all put it very well. Our decision was entirely 100% fiscal, had nothing to do with the value of the position. And I just want to make it very clear that that was the entire argument all along, was that we just didn't have the funds. And it was either that position or another teacher. So I guess we'll have to continue these discussions as we go toward the fiscal 22 budget as well.
And that's why, Diane, that's an excellent point, because, everything that's been said here tonight, it was said last night too. And we heard the same sort, or last year, we heard the same sort of arguments about the other 24 positions. It really does, you know, there's not positions that we just don't need. So I really encourage everyone to please try to fund what we ask you to fund. That's my.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, if I can kind of close the discussion, I agree with most of pretty much everything that everyone has said. We established this position after Sandy Hook, and frankly, the research is a little mixed. It really depends on who you look at. Some believe that there is great deterrence in terms of, you know, mass violence in schools. I think all these other things, the research is much more solid about helping with truancy, helping with safety checks, helping supporting the administrators in sort of all the things that schools are asked to do besides just educate children. And that, of course, is what we need to be always making sure we all understand, is that we don't just teach children, we take care of them, we do everything that is necessary when they're delivered to our custody. So on the other hand, I was, you know, I have to also be clear that in the budget discussions last year, it was rather a surprise to me anyway, that the position was in the union contract for the police department, which required them to fund it. Whereas we actually had never made any year-on-year commitment to funding it. And I thought that there was an MOU, but apparently there's not. I don't know if the police has, the police department has one. So yes, it is always a matter of priorities. It is always a broader discussion of what we are willing to fund as a town and a community, and what is needed to be funded. And I think the balance remains that the needs are far greater than the willingness has been to date, at least over the last budget cycle or two. So I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. Mrs. Pava?
Yes.
Mrs. Farnworth?
Yes.
Mr. Dakotas?
Yes.
Mrs. Palish?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So the motion carries 5-0 to continue funding for the school resource officer for FY21. And we will continue to discuss this for the FY22 budget.
Dr. Lockton, this is Mr. Brawley. And one other thing I'd like to say before we move away from the school resource officer, because I know we're going to hear it tomorrow. People will be saying, well, we knew the money was in the school department budget to fund this, because they did. What they have to realize is we didn't purchase a lot of supplies for students this year because we didn't know exactly where we were going to end up. And that's where the money is being saved. So there wasn't extra money in the budget. It was the students didn't receive all the supplies that we had in our original budget. You know, so that's where the money was saved.
That's
Yes,
that is 100% correct.
Yeah, and that's a really important point, Mr. Cabral, as we were doing this in the context of knowing where our budget to actuals are in, you know, March, as opposed to last, you know, February, frankly, was when we were first discussing these cuts for this fiscal year. So, you know, yes, 14 months down the road, things look differently. And that is, again, one of the unfortunate consequences of our peculiar budget process in Tiverton.
And understanding that this budget is still being covered. We are deficit spending. We are covering this budget with one-time revenue sources.
That is correct.
That's true. That is true. We are making it up out of things that we managed to scrimp on. All right, we are up to item 8G. Is it really 9:20?
I'll make a
So,
motion to, just for purposes of discussion, I'll make a motion to accept the backup as presented to us from Dr. Sanquioni. I know you probably have him go over it, but I'll make a motion to accept.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I'm going to open the floor to discussion. Mr. Dakotas?
No, I'd just like to thank Dr. Sanquioni for briefing us on this thing. It's brilliant and great job.
Mrs. Pava?
One question, I guess, for Dr. Sanquioni regarding Council 94. Are there stipulations for age of years of service required for the employees to take advantage of this one-time early retirement incentive?
The only stipulation is they have to be on the top step.
So, okay, so when you say top step for Council 94, there are 3 lanes. And after your 18 months, that's when where you're going to be for the rest of your career. So that's what you mean by the top step for Council 94, correct?
Exactly.
Okay. One more question, for Council 94. I don't even know if I can ask this question, but I'm going to try and you can let me know. I'm really concerned about the health benefit. I'm really concerned because as I went down the list that I had, if we have to co-pay someone's health coverage for 75% of that premium per month for 8 years, I'm just throwing 8 years out there. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And so you've looked at that. I'm assuming that that's been factored in.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And it's still it's still good savings.
Right. We absolutely looked at that, and we look at that as if they retire, it's a benefit they receive anyways, and we're going to have obviously pick up that replacement in health insurance there. It just gets back moving a little farther. However, the difference between what they earned and what we would pay out in health insurance and what we would save still would put more money in the school department's discretion.
Okay.
For retaining positions.
Okay, because then you still have to replace that person. So you're still paying probably around 80% of that, but they pay about 20% copay, I think. So you're still replacing that person that retired. So you've still got to make up that difference in the medical coverage. And medical coverage, I always look at because it's a huge expense. It's a huge expense to us. So it's still, you're saying that you still have a savings.
Exactly. If you may recall, I don't know if you have the memo that's in the packet, but we show you.
I've got it in front of me.
Yes, you're looking at the far right column. You see that the savings anywhere between 11,000 and 7,000. So we've looked at that and recognized that yes, this would be better for the school system.
Okay, that was my only question. Thank you.
Mr. Dakotas?
Oh, I already went. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I knew I was confused.
You just give me the opportunity. Forgot to before. Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Palish.
All set.
Okay, Ms. Farnworth.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Peter, I just have one question. So about the Council 94 positions, this is just offered to those 8 positions, right?
It's offered to any secretary or custodian. It was restricted to those 2 categories. We couldn't make it work for our paraprofessionals and aides and people in those positions.
All right, so these are all job descriptions, not necessarily specific people.
Correct.
Okay. And when we say retirement, can they just decide, if, I don't know, say they're 25 years old and they say they want to retire, does that count?
I'm not sure it would count, but you'd be hurting yourself financially because you wouldn't qualify for the health insurance. You have to hit some age stipulations for that.
I see. Okay.
You wouldn't be eligible for pension either.
Right.
I mean, you still have to be a certain age, even Council 94 members to be eligible for a pension. You can't retire at the age of, say, I'm going to say 50.
I guess what I'm getting
So-
at is if someone had worked here for 6 months or 18 months and they said, well, they're going to offer $3,500, I'm quitting. I'm going to call it retirement. I'm going to go get a job somewhere else.
I know what you're saying, yeah.
You do that?
Gosh,
Not really. You'd have to retire to make it work for yourself personally.
yeah.
But
You can't-
they could still demand the 3,500. Maybe I'm getting caught up in something here that
Well,
isn't.
I guess the positive thing to look at is even if they did that, we'd still generate the savings. It's more of a personal thing. They'd be hurting themselves personally, but we're getting the savings no matter what.
All right, I gotta let this dog out. All right. I'm gonna ask for a vote. Mrs. Pavo, any other discussion before that? Well, dog. He's voting. All right,
I'm a yes.
okay. Mrs. Farnworth,
Yes.
Mrs. Palish,
Yes.
Mr. Dakotas.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 5-0. All right.
Dr.
Did you
Larkin,
vote?
Mr.
Did
Gallagher,
you vote with your dog there, Dr. Larkin?
No, I thought I voted yes. I voted yes.
Just one thing I'd like to mention for the general public. These early retirement incentives are offered to save the school department money. This is not where we're trying to give people a retirement. It's to save the school department the differential between a top step teacher and when we hire somebody on step 2 or step 3. So it's a huge savings in the teacher category, and there's a smaller savings in Council 94. So it's
Excellent point, Manny.
generate some savings for the school department.
Yep.
Thank you for making that point, Manny. That's very important. And I think it's been a long night, so we probably missed that ourselves a little bit. But, and actually, I think it saves hopefully a teaching position as well, if we are in a position where we need to be looking at layoffs again. So thank you for making that point. All right. So I'm going to ask for motion to table item 8H until after we come out of executive
So
session.
moved.
Or a second?
Second.
Any opposed? I'll take that as unanimous. I'm now going to ask for motion to return to executive session under Rhode Island General Law 4246 5A2, NEA Tiverton contract, and Rhode Island General Law 4246 5A1, goals superintendent.
So
Second.
moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any opposed? Okay, we are in executive session,
Good night, everyone,
right?
Right.
Good night.
except for Peter.
I'm going to leave you guys in the main room, and Peter, I'm going to give you
Make me the
the
host.
admin. Yeah.